Still working on some stuff here. I know it's been a while, but honestly, getting parts and research has been stupid time consuming. And I wanted to do some bike stuff, but honestly, it's been 40 degrees and overcast and snow and rain like nonstop. So as much as that sucks for doing any kind of like productive bike work, it's given me time to actually get my truck back together and running. So I've been jamming away on this Hemi project, and I was at kind of a holdup waiting for connecting rods. Well, I finally got my rods after a week delay of the people that sent them to me, basically dicking me around, not taking responsibility for their drop ship. I finally got a return number. I got the rods sent back. They did send out another set of rods from another distribution warehouse somewhere. So those rods showed up, and were packaged totally different than the first set that showed up with just 6 loose ones in a box. So I actually have 8 good usable rods, but there's never not a glitch. So here's my 8 usable rods. There's Eagle H-beams. They're not, they're good rods. They're nothing super expensive or super fancy. Just a good rod. But the funny thing is they showed up, and the big end was about 2.5 to 3 thousandths undersized from a factory spec. So these weren't even sized right for me to use. So I had to take this whole set of brand new rods and go get them resized right away, because I had measured everything, tried to mock up on my crank, and my numbers came out that we were dealing with like -1 to 1.5 thou clearance. So basically when you tighten the rod down on the crank, it was just locked onto it. So that's not how clearances work. So yet again, we had to deal with another issue that, somebody else decided to drop the ball on. But those are actually resized now to the correct factory standard size right there. So now I can go ahead and I'm going to loosen all the caps up on them. I want to put bearings in them all. I'm going to put my dial bore gauge in there. And I already got the crank installed on this thing. Crank, cam, lifters, oil pump, rear main seal. I've been just kind of plugging away at little things that I can do. I did get the whole rotating assembly sent out, get balanced, and it was actually pretty freaking close. So the rotating assembly is all good to go. I just need to start doing some checking on some bearings, and then we got to start putting pistons on rods and get this short block together. So I went ahead and got my dial bore gauge out and measured all my rods up. These all got bearings in them. All the bearings are in there. Went ahead and labeled 1 through 8, and then which side will be facing front, because these rods do have, there's a beveled side and a not as beveled side. That beveled side always goes towards the outside of the journal, so you'll have, usually a radius in the corner of the crank journal that bevel would clear. This crank isn't really beveled quite that same way, but it's good to, good practice to do everything the same. But that's why that has a bigger bevel on one side than the other. So I can show you here. If you get down there and look, that bevel there, and then nothing there, just a little chamfer. So that's the point of that bevel. So rods do have, a forward and a back, or one side or the other. But I got my clearances all figured out. Everything kind of falls into where I wanted it to be. Thank God I have good machinist friends that could resize those for me. Now, we're going to clean up a few things quick, and it's time to start putting rods on pistons and slamming them home, and hopefully we get this back together. So after a bunch of jagging around with my shitty ass piston ring compressor that fought me, I got a short block assembled here. Everything went together actually pretty good, other than that ring compressor. I should have bothered to get like an actual tapered bore ring compressor for this thing, but it's together, it works, everything rotates real nice and free. I didn't film me putting this together because it was literally a fight. It's been like fucking 4 hours, I don't know. It's stupid. But yeah, we're good to go on now. I think we're going to start. I'm going to get the front cover on, get the oil pan on, and then we'll do heads. I don't have an intake yet. We'll get that situated later. But for now, we're going to get the front cover, front seal, and then I can get the oil pan on it, and we can kind of button up the heads and stuff. Valve covers are on the way. I got some pretty cool Holley Sniper fabricated aluminum ones coming. Those will look pretty neat. But we'll get going on the rest of this stuff now. So this is now where this video is going to take a little bit of a change. A little detour. As you can see, there's no longer any parts sitting on my bench, and there's no longer a motor sitting over here. See, what had happened was I built a motor. Weather has just been stupid lately. So between rain and cold, I've been squeaking in work on the truck motor and putting the motor in itself. Like for like an hour here and there, I'd get 2 hours of dry or no wind or something that I could work on it. But that made it super hard to film, because to film this stuff, it takes a little bit of time. And I was literally on a time crunch to just get work done when I could. So if I had an hour of decent weather time after work that I could get something done, I was putting in an hour's worth of work, and I really couldn't film much, because if I was going to start filming, that hour's worth of work turns into 20 minutes worth of work, and the rest of it's kind of monkeying around with the camera, setting stuff up, trying to get so you can see things. It just wasn't productive, and as much as I wanted to film as much as I could with this project, because I thought it would have been cool to document more of it, time-wise, it just didn't make sense to cover this the way I wanted to, given the weather we've had to work with. Since that first little clip up to this point right now, it's been like 2 weeks since I started filming that, and the motor's been in the truck for a week now, and I've been whittling away just at little things. But that's kind of where now I did manage to get like a bunch of pictures as kind of the process was going. So this video now is going to go, I'm going to run you guys a little bit of a slideshow and try to just show you the progress as it went along. I didn't even document getting the heads bolted on, checking. I got push rod length checkers. I went through and was checking for push rod length. Then I had to order custom length push rods, so there was a little bit of a time wait for that. Getting parts in general has just been a disaster. Just nothing's moving efficiently these days. But I have now everything I need is in my possession, and I just burped, and it tasted good. I literally have everything for this to be complete at this point. And I'll show you, I'll run this little slideshow with pictures, and then I'll show you a little walk around of where the truck is at, and kind of everything I had to do, because there was some changes I had to make. I tried to do some mock-up and lay some things out, and that didn't quite work how I had planned while it was all in the garage right here. Once we got to the truck, things changed a little bit, because I'm putting something in the truck that was never there in the first place. So I'm having to kind of measure and clearance and check fit on stuff, but the end result I think you guys will be pretty, like, I don't want to say impressed with, because I don't really try to like impress anybody or like do this like braggadociously. I think you will dig how this fit and finish is going. But yeah, so that's where we stand. Again, like I wish I could have shown you more of the process, but time and weather, even today, it's 45 rain and there's severe storms rolling in a couple hours. So I was up late last night because it was sort of warm last night and no rain. I needed to extend my injector harness connectors. So I got 4 of them done last night at about 11 o'clock at night. And then I got up this morning before the rain got here and got the other 4 done. So I did passenger side last night, did driver side last night. So the injector harnesses are all, extended, buttoned up, good to go. But that's the type of stuff I've been squeaking in. Like, I get home from work, I'll do some stuff around the house, try to get some things in the garage situated, and literally I got a half hour before there's rain coming or the wind picks up and it's cold. So I'm trying, guys, but even our track right now, our local track has got a brand new surface they did over the winter. The weather has been so shitty, the track should have been open already. They've not been able to prep the surface to even get like a groove going on the thing to make it like a safe and competitive surface. So even that's delayed, which isn't the worst, because these guys are ready to go, but I can't tow them without my truck. So this truck has been priority 1. Been working away at it. But now I'll show you the slideshow, and then we'll go into actually looking at the truck, and I'll show you where it stands. I think you'll dig it. So here's where we stand. It is legitimately, it's in there and buttoned up. The headers you can see down here, it's cold and rainy out right now. I need to get under the truck. The headers are just hanging on a couple bolts right now. There's slots and they just kind of hang on the bolts. My header gaskets just showed up yesterday, so those are not tight, and I also don't have the Y pipe on there yet to connect my exhaust up. Eventually I'm going to build all stainless exhaust for this thing, but for now I just need to get it together. But there's the fit. That's a 6.1 with a Holly high ram. You can see I had to extend the harnesses because the injectors are just up a little higher than factory. But factory fuel line is hooked up, fuel rail, everything is kind of in there. Like, it just couldn't have fit any better. Like, look at where my fuel line clearance right here. But I got a 1/16 of an inch to the back of the AC housing. I got my crossover hose. Everything's tucked in there nice and neat. I got my brake booster hose, map sensor. There's an emission hose here that runs down over here to this canister. It's just stupid shit for, you know, fit and finish to make this work. And you probably know or noticed in the pictures I had in the slideshow. Sorry if you hear wind noise. It's storms are rolling in and it's windy as hell out right now. But anyway, in the pictures you probably saw that this charge tube originally came up. It went over the front of the motor, down over here, hooked around, and the throttle body I had planned on having right here. Well, like I said, I'm putting stuff in here that was never intended to be in this truck, and it wasn't there originally when I took it apart. So I was measuring off of just phantom measuring points. I was trying to come off of bell housing bolts because the transmission was in there. I was measuring off motor mount bolts, trying to figure out roughly where this stuff, the brake booster, everything sat, to know if I was going to have clearance for the throttle body. And I straight up fucked up, I won't even lie. I just didn't get the measurements right, so all that mock-up that I did was pointless because it just didn't work. By the time that throttle body was hanging over here, it was into the brake booster, and well, we can't have that happen. So we had to flip that top around and run the throttle body over there. I had to get pretty creative with the charge tube here. As you can see, it's kind of a tight. I'm not real thrilled with this angle right here, but I needed to get this to start going that way as fast as possible. And then you can see it kind of loops around, and into the throttle body. And then I do use these little hardware store adjustable like tie rods basically, and I make tabs, and then that keeps this thing from ever blowing off, or if a clamp comes loose, that tube ain't going nowhere. Same thing here, I use one for support for the air filter tube so it doesn't fall off the back of the supercharger. I tried to route everything as clean as almost factory looking as possible. As you can see, I made an adapter to use a factory intake air temp sensor, and then there's a retainer plate. So if I ever gotta make a repair on the road somewhere, I can get an 07 Ram intake air temp sensor and plug that right in. Loomed everything up nice as I could. You can see everything's, you know, I'm not a big fan of zip tying stuff together to the point where there's no slack. I like when things can kind of move a little bit. But all in all, my dilemma that I had for not being able to run a throttle body over the front here because all this shit is in the way, the side mount throttle body ended up working out pretty good. And some people were actually asking about the clearance of whether or not this Holley High Ram and intake top was going to even fit in this truck. There's really no intake options for a truck that are aftermarket, you know, cast, metal, anything intakes. Everything is a car intake, which is a lower intake, and it has a front mount throttle body. So I wouldn't have been able to retain any of my factory, you know, truck front drive system stuff. I would have to switch everything over to a car setup. Then we get into the supercharger bracket not working. So there was just a lot of back and forth interchanging stuff that, you know, I investigated other options, and it just made more sense to make that work as opposed to completely re-engineering the whole front of the motor. And by doing it this way, I now have everything is factory 07 Dodge Ram. If I need parts, I can run to AutoZone or whatever, and I can change stuff out now. So the question I was getting at about whether or not this was going to fit, I did have to clearance the cowl here. This cowl sticks out probably a good 14 inches from the actual firewall on the back side of the motor, where the trans would basically be sitting bolted up to the back of the motor. So I'll try to show you how that looks quick. See that little notch there? It's finished off with some trim, but that basically just goes into the wiper cowl area. There's like a gutter behind here where all that water would drain down into. Well, when I notched this up and over, it's only notched as high as this flange. And I finished it off with some trim, and I built a box that sits in there. So these vents here, the rain can't just drain down into the top of the motor. It's actually all sealed off again on the inside. I basically just made it two separate gutters now. So this drains and goes that way, and this side drains and goes that way. Nothing can actually come down on top of the motor. So that's actually kind of an empty void area in there. It worked out pretty slick for this whole deal. So there's going to be 3 types of people that are going to see this, and it's going to be, the first person's going to go, man, I can't believe you cut into your truck. Then there's going to be somebody that goes, it actually worked out pretty slick. And then there's going to be the third guy that goes, man, I could never do that. You know, that's over my skill level or something. I'm telling you, there's a will, there's a way. Just start making stuff fit. It's just metal. It's just a metal area truck. It's a truck. It's all parts, nuts and bolts, things all just, you know, just do it. Throw it in there, it'll work. You'll find a way. Just, you know, don't be gun shy. It's all about having fun with your projects. But yeah, it worked out pretty slick. I'm trying to think of what else I can tell you here for other obstacles I had. Again, I don't know if I showed you, and that picture's real good, but there's the cool Holley Sniper valve covers. I had to go with an aftermarket valve cover. I could have bought a OEM valve covers off a marketplace or something like that, off of an 09 and newer motor. But these heads are the Eagle heads, so these are 09 up heads. They have taller valves in them, so the pedestals that the rocker shafts mount to are taller. So I couldn't use my valve covers that came with my 5.7 motor. They wouldn't fit over the valve train. So I figured if I got to get valve covers, I might as well get something cool. So that's what fucking $550 valve covers look like, for cripe's sake. But totally worth it, because you can absolutely see that one little area where it says sniper. That's totally worth it right there, just because you can see that. I'm just joking. But yeah, all in all, I'm pretty happy with how this all went together. That intake is not ideal for this project, but like I said, there's just not a lot of options for a truck deal. And with the way Holley makes these high ram intakes, is you can buy different tops for different configurations, and this was just the route that made the most sense for the most versatility and the best chance I had of making something work first try. Even the lower part of the intake on these Hemis, you can run that lower part of the high ram, you can run it in either direction. Normally my oil fill cap would be up in the front here, and then all of these ports here would be on the back side of the intake. Well, because the firewall is back there, it's kind of close. I just flipped the lower part of the intake around, run it backwards. It still matches up to the head's fine. The bolt pattern is the same no matter which way you decide to flip this thing. So now everything is in the front, which also means I didn't have to mess with the factory wiring. So I didn't have to extend or monkey with any of the factory wiring to make this work. Even the throttle body is the factory connector. Everything lays basically as it was from the factory. The only reason I had to extend the injector harnesses is it was just too much of a tight reach to go from where it comes out of the main harness here. There's a coil plug here, and then it would go up to the injector there. The injectors are just up slightly taller, that the wires were just stretched a little too tight to meet that. So I bought some extended pigtails, made my connections, and everything's connected up nice and clean like. So not how Dodge intended it, but it sure looks like it's how Dodge intended it. I think it's pretty good. No other real issues. Even the headers. These headers, they're listed as 09 and up, two-wheel drive Dodge Ram. Obviously my truck's an 07. I'm convinced the only reason they put that year break in there from, you know, whatever we'll say, 03 to 08 and then 09 and up, is that 09 is where they went to the different heads that have a bigger port, intake and exhaust. So you technically could use these headers on the older trucks, because the older trucks, or the older motors, 08 and older, had the smaller exhaust port, and those headers would still cover up that smaller port. But you wouldn't be able to use the early year headers if they were specific to that year. You wouldn't be able to use a small port header on the big port heads. So that's about the only interchange thing that would matter for those year breaks. But for these headers to be 09 and up two-wheel drive Ram, they are an absolute perfect drop-in fit. Laying underneath, you can get your hands right up in there, get to all the bolts. It was pretty slick. Again, these were, you can't even see them, for cripe's sake. It's, you know, you can see some shiny down there. If you notice the camera shaking, it's because I'm freezing my ass off. But yeah, you can see a little bit of the headers. These were 200 and whatever, 70 bucks off Amazon. They are absolutely China headers, and they are made really well. They're stainless, they're TIG welded, they look really cool. I got some pictures I'll show you, but for the price, God bless the Chinaman. That was a good deal and a good fit. So now we gotta button all this up. I added coolant, it's got oil. I actually did have this thing running with open heads. I fired it up, I cranked it over with no plugs in it, built oil pressure, and then I fired it up and just had to see if it was going to start and idle, because I don't know how close this map is going to be for this combo before I, you know, get going on tuning on it. But we got to finish up those exhaust gaskets and connect up my exhaust for now until I get around to building the stainless stuff. But this is where we stand on the Ram project. It's getting there. It's up in the air right now so I can get underneath it and do the exhaust. But as you can see, everything's wet and I'm cold, so I'm going to wrap this one up. And I hope you kind of dig this, but sorry the footage wasn't better. But maybe the next footage you'll see is we'll do some burnouts. So thanks for hanging around and watching me babble about my non-motorcycle project.